Not too long ago, we had the CEO of MSM Malaysia Holdings Berhad as our guest on the show. And today, I'm very delighted that Tuan Syed Feizal Syed Mohammad is back on the show. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me here.
So last time we talked a lot about MSM as a business. And MSM is in the business of sugar, right? While we all think that is the sweet thing that we consume on a daily basis, but actually there are a lot of knowledge that goes into this commodity itself. And if you know it enough, you can even become a sugar trader or a commodity trader in general, and that may help you to make a lot of money, right? So today we are going to dwell deeper into sugar as a commodity, and hopefully the audience can understand what is sugar and how we can appreciate better, right, when we consume the commodity, right? So first of all, I think we all take sugar for granted. We think sugar is just sugar. Sometimes we even open up a pack and then just use half pack and then we just throw the rest away. But I understand that there's actually more towards it, right? To begin with, where does sugar actually come from?
Yeah, thanks for that. So sugar is the second most traded commodity in the world. In terms of tonnage, I think it's about close to 190 million tons. So when you speak of sugar, you will always think Brazil. In terms of, let's say, positioning, I would say 70% of the global sugar is coming or originating from Brazil. In export terms, then you would have Thailand. India is at times exporting, but there are times that they also curb or reduce their exports.
Why do they do that?
It's simply because of their domestic consumption and also that they have an ethanol program. So sugar, it can go not just for food, it can go also into ethanol. So there's always this kind of like small battle between food versus fuel. It happens also in ethanol countries like Brazil. So sugar millers can switch. So in Brazil, I think close to about 60% of sugar mills can easily switch to serve ethanol. So in India, they have this B10 program in terms of the fuel mix, 10% being ethanol. And that may change also in the future to B20, a higher mix.
Okay.
So yet to be seen the impact on the sugar that normally goes into food, whether it goes into that B10 mix for fuel. So those policy changes are still being discussed, being debated in India. So when you take these three countries, any outcomes, I would say, of these three countries will impact the availability of sugar worldwide. In 21, when Brazil was hit by extreme weather, 3 unusual waves of permafrost, 20-30% of the sugar crops got affected. It requires about 18 months of replanting to recover. So Brazil has, since then till now, long recovered. Now we are seeing some bumper crop, higher production out of Brazil. However, that being said, Thailand is on the reducing trend. Also because of weather. Let's say the extremes of drought and also flood has affected Thailand's crops. China, though not an exporter, but China has also been subjected to weather and their crop production has also been affected. So that has put China into a higher position as a net importer for sugar. Similarly, weather has also played havoc on countries like Bangladesh, who has also sugarcane plantation domestically, but weather having hit those production caused also shortages in Bangladesh. So I think that the sugar industry is sensitive to the fact that sustainability is key in ensuring well-managed production of sugar, and the instances of weather could hit them. The other aspect that also affects sugar production is the competing crops. So in Thailand, for example, you have cassava, and you have also corn that's competing for the same land. So farmers has this choice to decide which crop that they go for. As you know, the cycle time required for sugar is longer than if you were to go for, let's say, corn. And even I think cassava, if I'm not wrong, is even shorter as well. Likewise, there's also competing crops for the same land in Brazil. And not so much on cassava, but more on corn. So I think that such factors can affect, of course, the availability of sugar. And when availability of sugar is affected in terms of volume, then prices can start to be bullish.
Right.
Right? So this is where, as a sugar player, MSM needs to be always in tune with the markets and the potential factors that could affect sugar prices.
Since we are talking about investments and trading commodities, I want to introduce you guys to futures trading. Basically, futures are agreements to buy or sell an underlying asset at a predetermined price at a specific future date. If you expect the underlying asset price to go up in the future, you buy a futures contract today to lock in a cheaper price. The same applies if you expect the underlying asset price going down in the future. You can sell the futures contract today. The goal is to profit from the differences between the buying and selling price of the futures contract. And just like all trades, you will be charged a brokerage fee for this transaction. But what if I told you you can get up to 500 ringgit off when you buy futures contract? Let me introduce you to RHB Futures. From now till 31st of August this year, they are offering zero brokerage fees up to 500 ringgit on all online buys. So, if you're thinking about trading CME Group's Nasdaq 100 futures or S&P 500 futures, check out RHB Futures. And don't worry, if you're not into US indices contracts, RHB Futures also have other asset classes to trade, like gold, crude oil, soybean oil, and many more. To open your RHB Futures account and for more information, check out the link in the description below. Now, back to the video. Many analysts are talking about El Nino hitting the world today. That means a lot of drought in many parts of the world. So with that backdrop, what do you think is going to happen to sugar production going into 2024?
Well, the drought doesn't work in your favor. Sugarcane plantation is such that it needs both conditions. So during harvesting, you need a dry season. And during planting season, you need also a bit of rain. But when it occurs at the wrong periods, then you get the reverse outcome. And this is what's happening in certain parts of the sugarcane world.
Okay, with all the sugar that you just mentioned just now, I think those are not the sugar that we can immediately consume, right? It needs to go through some sort of processes.
Certainly. So like we import raw sugar.
Raw sugar.
Yeah, so raw sugar gets processed at the mills.
And what does a mill do?
Well, the mills, they do the crushing of the sugarcane itself. So besides the cleaning, cutting and washing, there's also the crushing of the sugarcane itself. So the juice are extracted and then that's processed in, I would say, a first stage of refining. So you get into a crystal form and that's called the raw sugar that we import.
And there's a special name for this kind of sugar, right?
Well, the one that we import is raw sugar, but the one that they sometimes certain countries continue to produce in a first stage, I would call it simply in layman's term, a first stage of processing, would be what we call as the low quality whites, or simply known as sometimes crystal sugars. Those are for specific markets, especially those with high population. They take crystal sugars, like India, Indonesia also. However, when we take raw sugar and starts to process, we go through a few stages. So a few stages before we get a premium quality sugar, which is called 45 ICAMSA. ICAMSA is the convention. Let me get this right. So it's an international convention on uniform methods of sugar analysis. It's based in Vienna. It's an organization. It's got member countries, and they are the ones who have those governing specs for every kinds of sugar.
So whatever that you produce has to comply with their stuff.
So for the ease of audience, a 45 ICAMSA is already a premium quality sugar. The lower the number, the better the sugar. It's a little bit like golf. The lower the number, and better your scores. Right. So in Japan, for example, the consumer market, it's ICAMSA 10.
What about Malaysia?
Malaysia is ICAMSA 45.
Oh.
It's like your sugar on the shelves. So that goes also with the clarity of the sugar. You have also the crystal size of the sugar. So for us here, we have our sugar crystals, I would say around 0.9. And that's measured by the aperture at the sievings at the refineries. Of course, in Japan, it's fine sugars, very fine sugars. Yeah, so every market has its own, let's say, acceptance of the different types of sugar and habits, I would say. And of course, there are some countries with the bigger crystals. You take Pakistan, it's a 1.2, 1.3. So consumers there, apparently, they like bigger crystals.
Right. But does it affect the taste and all that? Or is it the same?
Taste comes from your sucrose levels in your sugar. The sweetness comes from sucrose levels, so there's a polarization percentage that measures sucrose levels. So for a sugar to be deemed as premium or quality sugar, sucrose levels needs to be about 99.7. So that's where our gula super is.
Okay.
For your normal sugar, it's about 99.5.
Oh, it's a very close number.
Close, but makes a big difference for those who understand and a bit
Who
more
have a sweet tongue.
a bit more discerning in whatever they apply the sugar for.
Usually, what are the challenges when you source for sugar?
Well, I think that we have an omni sourcing strategy, so we are not totally dependent on Brazil. So when we source our raw sugar, it can come or originate from various countries. Of course, largely it's Brazil. But in case of any unexpected disruption out of Brazil, then we have choices, even Australia besides Thailand or India.
Okay.
So I think that's only being prudent and not to be too dependent on just Brazil. So you must be able to source it from other countries as well.
But wouldn't it make more sense to import from Thailand, which is just next door, our neighbor, than to say import it all the way from Brazil, which is so far away?
Logistically, that looks logical, right? But there is also in the pricing formula, there's a thing called country premium.
Country premium. Okay.
So I won't say there's a fixed formula behind it. It's set largely by the club of global traders who trades the sugar. And they look at availability of and the volume of sugar point in time. So this country premium can fluctuate up or down. Brazil, usually when it's bumper crop, there's enough sugars, then you get what we call as being flat. Flat meaning no premium. When Brazil is affected, let's say, or sugars coming out of Brazil for whatever reason, then at some point there was some premium. Not very big, but there was some premium. Thailand, of course, being sought after also for their raw sugars, they command certain country premiums. So when you add the logistics costs, the distance, and you add the country premiums, it kind of squares off.
Right. So the cost is actually not much difference if you import from Brazil than...
So those country premiums will generally net off any logistics advantage you have. It's something that I would say there's no fixed formula applied for country premiums. And what we understand that is set by the club of global traders.
Does government policy play a role in this sugar pricing as well?
For the raw sugar, no, it's an open market, it's a free market. It's traded on ICE, the Intercontinental Exchange in New York. So there's no governing price policy on or control prices on sugar. In Indonesia, of course, to help the plantation or the farmers, that's what we call as the floor price policy. But that's more on the very upstream, what's coming out of the farms, or rather the plantations. But apart from that, raw sugar is an open commodity.
But what if, let's say, for example, India decided to curb sugar export because they need more for domestic consumption? I'm pretty sure that is going to affect sugar prices globally, right? So when you guys trade sugar, do you also take into account those policy changes among all these big exporters?
Sure. I think that we have to stay attuned to the market and also that government policies. So when India, especially India, when they have that tendency to control exports, we have to be very sensitive to those sort of policies and even sometimes anticipate ahead of those policies. So I think that though they do not control prices, but they can control volumes coming out of those countries.
So MSM itself has a trading desk that trades this commodity, sugar. Do you do it more for hedging purpose or do you speculate the price of sugar? Well, how do you guys do it within the organization?
Well, we hedge the sugar for our inherent operations. We do not hedge sugar simply for speculative trading. We do hedge, and that we do it gradually. We do not lock all our positions on a single price. We move with the markets, and we try to move ahead of the markets. So we need to also be able to read the markets. We try to stay healthy in terms of having a positive mark-to-market position. And so far, I would say MSM, I think even before my time or so, I think that the traders they understand how to hedge raw sugar. And that knowledge is passed on from one manager to another. So I would say that's one of the most sustainable departments in MSM, because that's at the core of our business. That's 80% of our cost input. 75 to 80% is raw sugar. We have to get it right. We have no choice.
Right.
But I think we understand that particular commodity. And I would say that even though it's not a very big department and you don't need an army to do this, but I think that you need people who understand the market and be able to intervene. And over and above the department, we have also what we call as a trading committee. I chair the trading committee. There are also other senior management as part of committee that we collectively decide on mandates given to trader. And then we can also, at any time, have the ability to convene to take quick decisions mandated by the board. So I think that infrastructure, that framework is super critical in managing this key input cost of us. So at one time, I remember that when the sugar started to, in quotes, misbehave and start to be bullish, we started to see unusual movement. I remember calling everyone to assemble close to 12 midnight to take a decision that to go in and hedge largely our positions. And true enough, it was a right decision. And we all discussed around this midnight meeting to mandate our traders who are normally operating during graveyard shifts, I would say, right? So because of the New York market, the time difference. So to allow them to go in and take position. So that's one of the, I would say, the ability of MSM in being able to mitigate and ensuring that we have a proper handle, a good handle, a positive handle of the raw sugar.
Do you remember how much you save or how much you make in that hedging strategy?
I still recall we were able to hedge around 16 cents, no more than 17 at that time. And the sugar was heading towards 19. So so I still have vivid,
so about 20%
vivid recollection of that,
right.
that event. But it told me something. It told me that, we've got to be really agile. We cannot be bureaucratic in this sort of decisions. I've always told the raw sugar department to get all the necessary mandates from the board so that we are working within governance, within policy, what's mandated by the board. But of course, we have to rationalize to the board to give us some allowance, some leeways in taking position. So in the next, let's say, 12 months, we can do like 100% of our requirements. And beyond 12 months, for let's say a 24 months type position, we can do about 75% of our positions. So we have this sort of arrangements with the board.
So let's play this scenario a little bit, right? Let's say I'm a young trader in MSM. How would you advise me when to hedge more and when to not hedge so much?
Okay, so I think there's two rules. It's not rocket science, there's no magic formula, but buy low.
Buy low, right.
Low is relative, so you may think what looks expensive may actually be low, right? And what looks the other way also could be true. And the other is that do not lock up all your positions so that you will always be able to average, usually averaging down in case things go south, then you are able to average down. Markets are cyclical. It can go down, it can go up, but it never stays permanently down or you don't see it up too long, right? There's a cycle. So you must be able to anticipate that cycle. And once you are experienced enough and you don't lock up too much of your resources at any point in time and have some available, then I believe that you'll be able to sleep at night.
So don't use all your bullets in one shot.
Exactly.
Yeah. In case you make a wrong decision, you can still maneuver after that.
And there's no such thing as making a mistake. In risk management, you've got to make the calls. And you must be brave enough to make the calls. Applies to your Forex as well. The mistake will come when you lock up all your resources.
So in sugar trading, I think you need to have a very sharp eye on where the market is heading to. So in your opinion, where do you think sugar is going to go in the next 6 to 12 months?
I would say that it will not be as low as what we've seen in 21. In 21, it was, let's say when I first came in, I recall sugar was around 12 to 14 cents type range per pound. Today, it's gone as high as 27, even sometimes touching 28. And it's largely hovering around 24, 25. Today, as we speak, because of not just physical trading, but also there's what we call the net specs. And these are mainly speculators who take long positions as well as short positions. And the net of it, when it was high in terms of the net specs, the number of lots, then you see that sugar is extra bullish. When the specs are quite normal in any given point in time, then it behaves better. So today, a bit of a better behavior in terms of the raw sugar without the over bullishness of the net specs. So it's around 22 cents currently from the highs of 26, 27. But still, we are not falling into any temptation of mopping up. We still would like to see where it settles. When it settles, and we are convinced then that that is the floor for that period, then I think sugar having a position of global deficit currently of more than I think it's about 5.4 million tons deficit. So that's inherent.
That's going to keep prices up.
Yeah, so that's inherent. So having that in mind, then I think it would be prudent once the net specs are all done, or rather getting back to normal levels, and you see where sugar settles, then it makes sense to take up some position. So that will be the lows. It could be a 21 cent low, it could be a 20 cent low, it could be a 19 cent low, but you must be able to read the net specs volume along with the movement of the price.
Right.
And we've seen that scenario several times. So I've told the team to monitor the volume of the net specs. So we do monitor the volume of the net specs against the movement of the New York 11.
What is New York 11?
New York 11 is let's say the futures contract where you can even take delivery of the physical sugar.
Oh, okay. Right.
So that's traded on the Intercontinental Exchange in New York.
So whatever we discussed just now is the technical knowledge of how to trade sugar, right? But how do you develop the instinct to say that, hey, this is the right price, this is a good time to actually lock down a certain position in order to mitigate some of the risks that I can foresee in the future?
In risk management, I always told the raw sugar traders, do not hope and do not bank on something intangible. This is where the mistake will be made. So even instincts should not apply. I think you got to go based on data and when
empirical evidence.
Empirical evidence, and I think that will be good enough. Of course, then there's the element of speculators that come in. So when you take what is inherent data, empirical data, and you look at the influence of these speculative papers taking position, you will be able to make sense of what's going on. Apart from all the other policies or other macro factors that may affect, let's say, conflicts affecting commodities, apart from that. But I think that we try to stay disciplined in not placing on hope and placing on instincts.
Right, cool. I think that's all the questions that I have for you today with regards to sugar. But before I end the show, there's just this one last question that I would like to ask. Let's say, for example, I would like to join MSM to be a sugar trader. What qualities would you be looking for in me to hire me?
I think that two main qualities that is needed to be a good sugar trader is to be able to have that discipline of appreciating data and research, firstly. Secondly, I think that you must not be risk averse, meaning that sometimes risk averse could make you lose an opportunity when the prices are low. Because you have taken a higher position and prices fall, you may have, let's say, a negative mark to market. You may get jittery because of that outcome.
Correct. That's always the problem with traders, right? You make one wrong mistake and then you become fearful after that.
Yes. You do not do that. You must understand what is risk management. So when you take certain position, it could be a slightly higher position. You put some resources and the prices come down. I think that you do not panic or get jittery, knowing that you still have resources. But the problem will be where they forget that they have the ability to to still take up the lows, they become too afraid, too risk averse, that they miss the opportunity and the cycle goes back up again. So that window of opportunity is missed.
Right.
And it could be even for Forex. So you've got to have a steady head on this.
I think that quality applies to all kinds of trading, right? No matter whether it is S&P 500, ETFs, or commodities or whatnot. Yes. Okay, I think I'll be preparing my CVs to send to MSM.
Most welcome.
Right. Anyway, thank you again, Tuan Syed, for spending time with us today. I hope you guys enjoy the show and know a little bit more about sugar and helps you in your trading, let's say, commodity futures or any kinds of futures derivatives that you are looking into. Right. Stay tuned to our next episode and hope to see you guys again very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.